Okay, welcome everyone to our post-Purim show. Anyway, what was my problem on Purim? My problem with Purim was like this. It says, Chai Adam lebesu med b'Puria, right? A person has to get drunk on Purim. Achelo yoda. So the Mishnah Berurah explains, what are you not supposed to know? No, nothing. I mean, so the difference between the Aliyah of Mordechai and the destruction of Haman, right? So the question is, what would you have thought before you drank, and what would you think after you drank, right? Because it has to be that the drinking brings you to a new understanding, right? And the basic question is, how could drinking bring you to an understanding that your conscious mind couldn't get to? We're always involved in conscious learning. I mean, so the greatest, you can't daven when you're drunk, you can't do a din Torah when you're drunk, right? I mean, so how can this understanding ever be necessary to understand this difference? That's the thing. So that's the question. What would have thought sober, and what now do you think when you're under the influence of alcohol and you shouldn't be driving? Good question.
Yeah.
Did you think about it this Purim? Every Chag, you have to think about, you have to think into the Chag. Like, what is the meaning? What's the message? Once you understand the message, then you can do the tikkun. You can really understand the Chag. But if you don't understand the message that's being broadcast, so then you don't understand what the Chag is about. Every Chag is that way. So I thought like this is what I thought. That really, if the Jewish people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? We're all doing our mitzvahs. So then, of course, the tzaddik is going to rise up, right? Like when Moshe Rabbeinu held up his hands in the fight of Amalek, right? So how come when he held up his hands, the Jewish people were victorious, and when his hands got weak and they went down, they weren't victorious? What's the connection between his hands and the thing? Was it a mystical thing? So they explained, when Moshe Rabbeinu raised up his hands, the people looked at his hands and then understood that they have to look toward Shemayim. The heavens is where we get our strength. It wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu's hands. But when he got weak and he couldn't elevate the people to look up to Shemayim, so then they ran their lives according to Teva, and they couldn't beat the Teva of Amalek. So if the Jewish people are doing the right thing and their heart is looking at the Kodesh Baruch Hu, so they're above the Teva, and of course the tzaddik gets higher and higher and higher. The problem was that in Purim, we had sunk to a very low level. We're eating at the meal, okay, so maybe it was kosher, but still they had the kalim there of the Beis HaMikdash, and we were very, very low level. In the whole Megillah, you don't even hear the word of Hashem. It's all hidden. So there, the Chazal says we're really chas v'shalom finished. The whole story is supposed to be over, clear. So what did we see in Purim? That even though we weren't doing the Torah, and we had fallen to this very, very low level of holiness, of Kedusha, the Kodesh Baruch Hu was still with us. So I ask you, what's the bigger nest now? When you're doing the right thing and the tzaddik is rises up, or when you're doing the wrong thing and afal pikein, the Kodesh Baruch Hu saves us. So this is something that you can only say when you're under the influence of alcohol, because really the Svara Peshuta is always that you're supposed to be doing the right thing. And the goodness that you're creating by doing the mitzvahs, of course, the Kodesh Baruch Hu rewards with the aliyah of the tzaddik. So when you're drunk, though, then you can understand the yesod of Purim, because then you can say that the chesed of Kodesh Baruch Hu that he gave us, that even though we didn't deserve anything, and he still saved us, was a bigger miracle than raising up a tzaddik. But that you can only say when you're under the influence of alcohol.
When you're drunk.
Exactly, because it's only b'di'evet. Lichatchila, you have to be a good boy. You have to do what you're supposed to do and get the bracha because you're doing the mitzvahs. But b'di'evet, you see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even when we don't do what we're supposed to do, he's still there to save us. That was my insight into Purim.
That's a nice insight.
Okay.
So booze flips over the lechatchila b'di'evet.
Right. You're allowed to experience. You're allowed to say things that are only true b'di'evet when you're not when you're tipsy. Exactly.
Right.
Because then you understand. You understand that level of being so down that the Kodesh Baruch Hu loves you and how great a nest that is, that at that point when you're in the down position, you realize that Kodesh Baruch Hu is the greatest of the greatest. Because to reward the good is natural. But to reward the bad by saving the bad is a tremendousness.
Right. That's nice.
Anyway, that was my Purim word. Okay. I have another word since you like it. We might as well put it in. It says that Kimu v'kiblu, at the end, the Jews were Kimu v'kiblu, that, and the Chazal teaches Kimu v'ashikiblu kvar. What we already accept in Har Sinai, we then were Mekayim. In other words, there was a madrega, again, that was higher at the time of Purim than it was even on Har Sinai. Because there we were Mekayim the Torah, but we didn't Mekabel on ourselves, but Ratzon to do the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the mountain on top of us. He said, if you want the Torah, good. If not, not. So he forced us. It was Bal Korcho, right? But in Purim, we accepted the Torah from Ratzon because we love the HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we accepted the Torah. So the question is, again, the same type of question. What could be the Mila of Purim, and what was the Chesron on Har Sinai? How come on Har Sinai we didn't say Kimu v'kiblu? How come all of a sudden it took us to Purim to say Kimu v'kiblu? And also on Har Sinai we're at the purest state. Hashem just took us out of Mitzrayim. We're at the state where even the Shifcha, right, this saw more than Yecheskel. Everybody was on a very high spiritual plane. And on Purim, it was just the opposite. We're on a low spiritual plane. And there we did, l'chor, a higher act than we had on Har Sinai. So how can you explain that? That's the kasha. Okay?
Right.
So I explain like this, that on Har Sinai, Tosfos, I believe it's Tosfos asks, we already on Har Sinai, before we accepted the Torah, we said Naaseh v'nishma. We said we'll do whatever you say. So why did the Kodesh Baruch Hu have to put the mountain on top of us on Har Sinai and say, if you accept the Torah, good. If not, this is going to be your burial. We already said Naaseh v'nishma. Yeah. So we already agreed. So Tosfos answers we accepted Torah shebechtav, Naaseh v'nishma, but not Torah sheba'al peh.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between Torah shebechtav and Torah sheba'al peh? So the difference is what our class is about. To accept the Torah shebechtav, so it seems it's very, very simple what to do what the Torah says. There's some pages of halacha, ben adam l'chavro, but when we learn the Torah sheba'al peh, we see all the tremendous, tremendous detail involved in every single mitzvah. As Bezrat Hashem, that's what we're trying to explain here in the trade. There's all these particular mitzvahs have very, very sharp and fine details, and that we can only bring out through learning of the Torah sheba'al peh. So when we accepted the Torah shebechtav, it was something, but it was doable. When we got to Har Sinai and we saw the Torah sheba'al peh with all its details, we said, Who could possibly do such a thing? How can we possibly do what a Kodesh Baruch Hu wants with every detail from tefillin to kashrus to marriage, details on details on details? How can anyone learn it, actually do it? So the Kodesh Baruch Hu put on top of us har, kagigas, and he said, if you accept it, good, not. Well, how does that help? How does it help? So I say a mashal, it's well known that if a woman, Rahmana, sees her child get run over by a car, she's able to pick up the whole car and save her kid. The adrenaline from that horrible act starts pouring into her body, and she's able to do super things that normally she couldn't normally produce. So I said, that's why Kodesh Baruch Hu put the har on top of us like a gigas and said, this is a life and death situation. When a person knows it's a life and death situation, then his adrenaline moves to a level that he's able to makabel things and do things that he never could do in a normal conscious state. When it's a life and death situation, you produce at a high level. And that's what a Kodesh Baruch Hu did when he put the mountain on top of us. So that was very good. But what happened after 2 seconds after, the Chazal says we ran away like a children, running away from school. It was a tremendous, tremendous hole. Unfortunately, we went downhill to the time of Purim. At the time of Purim, we weren't doing too good. We took on an obligation, Nase v'nishma, Torah Sheba'al Peh, and Torah Shebiksav, of course, Torah Shebiksav, Torah, the Chiddush was Torah Sheba'al Peh. But Lamaisa, we weren't doing it. We had fallen to a very, very low level. At that level that we fell into, when we saw a Baruch who saved us, even though we made a contract that he was only going to save us if we do the mitzvahs, and we had broken the contract, and we had fallen to a very low level, and he saved us, so then the Ava that we had produced the same function that the year we had on Har Sinai. Just like a person is able to go out of his normal abilities when faced with the fear of death, a person's also able to go out of his normal abilities when given the reality of love. On Purim, we saw Kodesh Baruch Hu's love for us, and that gave us the ability to accept the Torah ba'ava. And that's what it means. Kimu Masha Kiluka.
And you think specifically the Torah Sheba'al Peh.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, right.
Right, because you need a super ability to learn and makabel all this. It's like gigantic when you start getting involved in it. When you start getting involved in all the prati details of Torah, it's a yam, they say. It's a vast, vast ocean of detail and of involvement. And you need energies which are beyond the normal energies. And that you can either get from Yira, when the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, hey, this is a life and death situation, or you can get it from Abba, when the Kodesh Baruch Hu shows you that he loves you so much that no matter what you are, the errant child, he's still ready to, take you back and to save you. So those two energies used, and that was what was missing on Har Sinai was that energy of love. We had Yira. We said, look, we made a contract, and the reality was we saw the Malachim and the thunder and all these things, and we accepted it. But we didn't accept it mitam ava. That gilui only came in the time of Purim. At that point, we said kimu bashakiruka. The ava gave us that extra dimension that we're ready baratzon to accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which was only forced on us at Har Sinai. Anyway, that was my vort. It's the same idea. The idea is, again, you have to come to an understanding of what does Purim give, and Purim is Yom Kippurim. It's like Yom Kippur. It's a time for tshuva, but it's a tshuva from Ava, not from Yira. Yom Kippur is a tshuva from Yira. Yom Adin, everyone's shaking. But we have to understand that the great love of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and that gives us a great true, a great elevation. Anyway, that was Purim.
That's nice.
Baruch Hashem, we had a wonderful Purim.
Yeah.
Okay, so now,
I want to use those.
okay, so now we have the great Torah Shebichtav in front of us, and we're analyzing it, okay? So we notice, again, the whole idea is to observe what the Kodesh Baruch Hu says. That's step one. Being an observant Jew, you have to look what it says. So we made this little chart help us to determine how a Kodesh Baruch Hu speaks in the Torah. So we notice that we talk about subjects, doing things, and those things have results. Said we're going to call them, give them the names from Dark Tfunos. We're going to call them the Nosei and the Nasu, or in Dark Gemara he uses Nosei and Mishpat. That's the words he uses, but the same idea. Or in modern English, we'd say a case and a law. Okay, so we have a certain case and a certain law. So the case, though, we broke down into someone doing something. We have to identify who that person is. So that's the poel, we called him, the person who is doing it. Then we have to know what action is he doing, the pa'ula, and then who is he doing it to. So we call that the hefel. And then what was the result? Anytime we saw that one of those elements were missing, Baruch Hashem, we looked at the Mechilta, for instance, and we saw the missing link, as they say. What it means when something's not said, or when there's a shinui. So if it's not said, it's the broadest category. When it is limited to ish, we said it's a miut, it's a limitation. And through the two psukim, we end up getting the definition of the halacha, the high end and the low end, how the limits of the law, okay, who is obligated in any specific halacha, how high does it go, and also how low does it go. So we saw we can eliminate nafil, for instance, a kid that's not 40 days old sometimes, and we can eliminate a katan, or we can include a woman. It depends upon how the pasukim play with each other. So that's what we observe. Now, we also said that there has to be a hierarchy of presentation. It can't be a balagan, as we say in Hebrew. It can't be mixed up. So we're trying to analyze what is the hierarchy, okay? So we start here. We explained the whole problem with Ever-Free when we sent a few stories why Ever-Free comes first. And the simplest one, the second one that I said, is simply because since he's going to be an actor in these cases of damage, so we have to know about him. So first he's introduced. So now we know he's on the stage, kiviyachol, so to speak. Now we have to put him in as one of our players, so to speak, and see what his name is. Now, we also notice that the Torah likes to start from the top down, right? Like you said, your doctor friend, you know, the higher the thing is, what do you say? The more they don't like you. Okay,
Yeah,
but
more patients.
right. So, but we saw that you go from the head down. Also, in responsibility, we go from the person with the most responsibility, which is man, doing the most irresponsible act called murder, right? And doing it willfully. And then we go down a level to now him to a lesser level when he still does murder, but it's not done with intent, okay? It's not done b'meis, it's done accidentally, okay? And then so we can understand that we start off man who is the main actor is given the first presentation. Okay. Then we talk about variations of who the victim is, and we talk about the parent, number one. Because even though this box is missing, the parent doesn't die. It was a very big chiddush that that the parent, that the person, because for Shalom, who hits his parent, gets the same din of Misa. Okay, so that's man who is hitting the parent. Then we said there's a man who is stealing another man. Okay, this other man is not the parent, not related, but that gets the same punishment. Okay. Interesting enough here, all of a sudden we go to Makalel Aviv. Why is that the next level down? Why shouldn't that be with Maka Aviv, right? Let's put the relationships first, right? So the Mikalel is not a action that's done with the body, like the hitting of the father or the ganef stealing a man. That's a physical act. The Makalel is a lesser act because it's only done with words. Okay? So there's the progression downward. But even so, even though it's a lesser act, it's only done with words, there's no physical damage, it's still, because the relation to the parent, it has the din of Mos Shemas. Okay? So after we talk about those of Misa through that scale of dissension, so then we talked about what happens if a man hits another man and he doesn't die. Okay? It's the next level down. And also, it's very interesting, it's not talking about, in this case that's picked is very interesting, it's talking about two people fighting each other, right? And, right? And hitting one with the other. Okay, so they fight together. So they both have now shutafim, as we mentioned in the Sefer Gayon now. We talk about the poel levado, a person himself, and now we call a poel bechevra, when people are working in a group. So here the two people are both participating, and one hits the other one, and then we have to talk about velomes, and here he doesn't die, right? Velomes, the victim. Right? No, you're right, the killer doesn't die also, but the victim doesn't die. Before we were talking about the victim dying, okay, and also the killer, and also the perpetrator dying because it happens to be a very unusual victim, i.e. the father, the parent, right, or the theft of the theft of another man. We have to understand why theft of another man is so chomer that it gets misa, but that's another question, okay? But here we're talking about two people who are fighting with each other, right? And velom, now they don't die. That's the next madrega down, okay? And the din is rapeh yirapeh, right? And shevis, that you have to pay now for doctor bills and for time off from work. Okay? Now we go to the next relationship, which we introduced. What about with an Eved? Okay, what's the din with a person's relationship with the Eved? Now, the Eved is unusual because, I hope my wife gets that. Oh, I hate these phones. Just 1 second.
Sure.
Now, Eved is unusual because you have rights to him. He's given up his rights as a human being, as a free human being, and he's given you the ability to control him, right? So he's not like a normal human being. And we're going to learn here also, they learned very interesting what happens, which is not stated, what happens with a rabbi, for instance, when he's with his students. Okay, what happens when the Bystander tells someone that he has to give stripes to someone and the person dies? You see? Now, those things are not mentioned specifically, but the Mechilta explains, and also Rashi brings up, that when it talks about Misa, it uses the phrase, it uses the phrase here, Ki yazid ish are'ehu lahargo ba'arama, with craftiness. So they learn that even though that the person who is giving the stripes according to the Bystander, or the teacher is teaching the student, even though he's hitting them purposely, he's not hitting them arama, and therefore they don't get that death penalty. Okay, that's another level down. I'm trying to explain that the Eved is giving up some of his rights to you, and he's supposed to do what you say, and you're allowed to give him a patch. Okay, so that's a next level down in that relationship, and we talk about if he dies or not, what the punishment is. It says nokem yenakem. What does that mean? We have to find out what that means. Okay, it doesn't say mos yumas. Okay. Then we have the two people fighting each other, and the next level of distance from the principal is called the bystander. Two people fighting, and now they hit a pregnant woman. So their aim was not to hurt the pregnant woman, their aim was to hurt each other. But she was an innocent bystander, and she gets hurt. So now what's her din? Okay, that's the next level down. Okay, and here, finally, if the special is a special din of the Eved losing his eye or his tooth, and he goes free, which is special, unique din to Eved, and it's brought at the end. Okay, so now this whole series of Pesukim is talking about man the damager in his various guises, in his various functions. Would be man the damager as a son, as a thief, as a person who curses, as a person who is called the Adon in relationship to his Eved, as a person who fights with someone who needs an innocent bystander, as we said. But now the next group, which we spoke about, is not man himself. It's property that does damage, which is the next level down, right? He himself is not going to do damage, but his shore, for instance, does that. His shore kills someone else. Right? So that's the next level, down. So we start off talking about the shore, and this word yigach we're going to understand, even though the Gemara explains it, means the shore kills someone with his horns. Okay? And we spoke about two different relationships. Whether the shore did it the first time, called a tam, or he did it after 3 times. Okay? And we noticed that after 3 times, the Torah says the Baal was warned 3 times. And he didn't watch, even with all those warnings, and the shore killed a man or a woman. So what's his din? He's not directly killing the other person through his lack of shmira, his lack of watching his animal. The animal went and killed. Okay, so we notice that there's a din for the animal. It doesn't matter whether he's a tam or a muad. That means the first time or the third time, the animal's got to go. Okay, but the man, it says in the first time, the Baal Hashor Naki, and time it says he has to give pigeon nafsho. He has to pay pigeon. He has to pay a redemption to the victim, who is no longer with us, but probably to his family then. But the point is, it's a monetary compensation now, because it's not his direct damage. Okay? This is all stuff that we did. I'm just giving a brief...
Yeah. I'm just to remember, did that apply only to the first time?
The first time, no, the pigeon nafsho is only the third time. The first time it says...
On the third time, right.
On the first time it says, Yisakel the shore, don't eat the thing, but the Baal Hashor is not key. The third time it says he has to pay pigeon nafsho. Now, Of course, the Eved comes back into place. There he has to give Shloshim. If it's an Eved that's a victim of his animal, then he has to pay Shloshim Shkalim to the master of the Eved. Not was his. And the shore has to go. Okay? Beseda. So now, this is a review, but I just want to show it in the, it's very important to analyze the progression of the Torah. Okay? We're going to see this later on is going to have a very, very important significance in our Mishnah. But for us, we have to observe what's going on. So here we said now the perpetrator is an animal with his horns, and the victim is a human being. Then the Torah switches the actor and talks about a man digging a hole in the ground, and the victim again is a shore, or chamor, it adds. We have to know why it added chamor all of a sudden, but it's an animal. And we know he dies because it says that the dead carcass belongs to him. So it's what is that called? An unrefined pronoun. We don't know who the him is. A whole big deal in the Gemara. Is it who gets the dead carcass, and do you subtract that from the damages or not? Go into that. But the important thing to notice here is that we're talking now about a man digging a pit and an animal falling in, and the compensation is money. Okay? And we also mentioned, because we're going to be talking about this, it says not only, it says Habalabor Yishalom Kesev, but then it adds Yashiv Lebalav. It should have said Habalabor Yishalom Kesev Lebalav. What's this Yashiv? So there we're going to learn later on that this Yashiv, which is an extra word, comes to teach us he can either give Kesev or Shavik Kesev, something that has the worth of a Kesev. He can give any of his property that has it. Okay, fine. Now we said there was a surprise, because now we're back to the shore again. We started off with the shore. The victim was a man. We went now to the boar, and now we're back to the shore, whose victim now is another shore. Okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Umes. And he has to sell the living shore, and they have to split the money the first time, and they have to split the carcass. Okay? And again, if he's won 3 times, this time, instead of having to pay half damages, he has to pay complete damages. And he has to get the dead animal. Okay? Well, we'll talk about who he is, but the point is, now, the question was, why didn't we put this shore with the shore above? Talk about the shore whose victim is a man, and then talk about the shore whose victim is a animal, and then talk about the boar. Put the two shvarim together. How come the Torah first talks about the animal hitting a human being, killing him? All of a sudden it talks about the pit where the animal gets, we switch now, the animal dies, and now it goes back to the shore. So it ended my question is, put the two shvarim together, and then put the boar afterwards, correct? Are you with me?
Yeah.
The shore that kills a man, the shore that kills an animal, and then talk about the boar. How come the boar is in the middle? So
we posed the question last time. I don't remember that.
Exactly. The answer I said was, here the object of damage was created by the man. Whereas in the shore, all he did create the shore, he just didn't watch the shore. But the boar is something that he actually did. So it's closer to him than his shore. You with me?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's why it's first, because we start from the cases which have the most obligation, that means the most reason to be chayev, the most former reason, and then we go lighter. So here in the boar is something he did with his own hands. It's true that later on the animal just fell in, but he, as the creator of it was more responsible than the person who just didn't watch, because he also didn't watch also the shore, just like he didn't watch the boar, but the boar he created. So it's closer to him than the shore. That's how he answered.
Why isn't it come before the first shore then?
Because this is the first, because this shore is killing another shore. The first shore is killing another man. This boar, by the way, is only killing a shore. You with me? He's talking about the victim being a man. You see all red here?
Yeah.
It's either a man or a child or an Eved. Now we're going to go
because the victim is more important.
Exactly.
So because the victim is more important, that puts him before. Okay, yeah,
right.
I got it.
Okay, got it. Okay, but here the victim now changes in all these cases.
Right.
So on that side, they're all equal. Okay, the responsible one is him because he made the tekala, he made the boar. Okay, so then we talked about the shore hitting the victim again of another animal. And then again, strangely enough, we start talking about a man now, a ganav. Right? Now here, as opposed to the ganav who stole a man before, now the ganav is stealing a shore and a seh. He's stealing an animal. Okay? So really he should have been first. How come we wait to him to teach him after the door?
He should have been first before what? What do you mean?
Let him, since it's talking about man the damager, let him even be before boar. In other words, this series is now, we're now going to talk about damage to animals in this series, right? We have the boar damages an animal, we have the shore damaging an animal, and we have a ganav damaging an animal. He either steals it or he sells it. He either sells it or slaughters it, okay? But the victim here is an animal, so it's a degree less than the first victim, which was a man. That we can understand. So why not put the man first before the boar? Why did we wait with the ganav and put him after the boar and the shore? Are you with me?
Yeah, was it because of the nature of the pa'ula is less in this case?
Meaning, what was the nature?
In other words, that theft is less of a damage than killing.
Why?
So why is theft less than killing?
Yeah.
It doesn't destroy the object.
So now if you notice what you're saying, cases in theft. Okay, it says like this: Ki ignanav ishor v'seh v'tavcho o mochro. What does that mean? Tavcho mochro.
That he kills them or he sells them.
Right. So in both is
well,
but he slaughters the animal. So the animal's dead. So he really did kill the animal. Right? Yeah. Or if he sold it, we don't know. I don't think we'll ever get the animal back again. He sold it, it's gone. I mean, you know. So in both cases, the animal isn't here anymore. And one, he actually killed the animal, Ishui's tabach, right? And the din is he has to pay 4 or 5 times back. If it was a big animal, he has to pay 5, and if it's a smaller animal, he has to pay 4. That's knas. In other words, he not only has to pay for the animal himself, but we're going to add on 4 or 3 more times, you know, plus the animal itself plus another 4, and the animal plus another 3, depending upon how big he was. Okay? Here, let's just get the whole case clear here. Then the Torah talks about an unusual situation with the ganav, that he goes into the house, right? He sneaks underground. And then we talk about the person in the house killing him, whether he can kill him or not. So we say if he doesn't know who he is, so he's defending himself, because since it's coming at night, he doesn't want anyone to know who he is, and he's ready to kill anyone who finds out who he is. So it's self-defense. The balabayas can kill the ganav, right? But if he knows, that means the balabayas knows that it's his son or his father that would never kill him, so then he can't kill him. Okay, and the Ganav, we don't know what the Ganav stole here, did we? I don't think we know what he stole here. We know, yeah, he steals the sword of the Seh, and if he comes in the Machteret, then if he gets killed by the Balabais, the Balabais is self-defense. He doesn't have to pay for blood. But if he knows the Balabais that it's his father or son, so then he would, if he killed him, be chayev for the death penalty. And the Ganav has to pay. And if he doesn't have money, he then has to go into slavery again. That's how we got that good old Eved Ivri in the first place, because he stole and he got caught and he didn't have money to pay, so he had to be sold as a slave by the Bystander. And then it says, Im temsi biado, but if you find the object, here's the other thing, that's what you spoke about originally, but if you do find the object, it wasn't slaughtered or stolen, then he has to pay twice. Once the object itself, he has to give back, and then he has to pay another payment, kaful, as a kanas. Okay? So that's the whole parsha of the Ganav. The Ganav either destroys the animal, then he has to pay 4 or 5 if he's found. A little interlude, what happens if he's caught, digging under the ground. And then if you find the object, he still has to pay a knas for stealing. So the question is, how come the Ganav is mentioned before after the animal and the pit doing damage? The animal destroyed another animal. The pit destroyed another animal. The Ganav destroyed the animal. He slaughtered it or he sold it. Okay, if he found it, there's that other possibility. He does have to give it back plus the kanas. But why is he mentioned in the third position after we talk about the shore? So now he doesn't kill a man. We can understand the first thing that the Torah talked about was the shore killing a man. Chumrah. That makes sense. But that went to bor. We said, because that's more of the person's action, building the bor. Then we went to shore, which is what you're supposed to watch. And then it went to the Ganav. So the Ganav is a human being. Why did they put the Ganav before the shore and even before the bor? You get a question?
No, it's a good question. I mean, the Ganav is also, in a way, more responsible for his action than the guy who digs a hole.
Exactly.
Because there's no intermediate. There's no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a direct damager. So
Yeah.
how come we wait for him? How come the Torah waits for him?
Yeah. Ich weiß nicht. What was I don't remember what you said last time. I don't remember the reasoning.
The only reason I come, and again, this is an uneducated, I haven't read anyone about it, okay, but I would like to say, because a Ganav is what we call aberrant behavior. And that's why he's mentioned after an animal. That's what I'd like to say. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I'd like to say. A person who steals, a person who steals even lower than an animal. He's after an animal.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because that's what we call a mitzvah sichlius, that you shouldn't be taking other people's property. An animal, we can understand, takes another person's property because he doesn't understand what property is. But a human being that takes another person's property is really worse than an animal. That's what I would like to say. I don't know if it's true. I just gave a theory. But whatever it is, you must answer the question. If it's true that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is presenting his information.
It creates a bit of a problem,
yeah.
I would think. For example, with murder, the mazid, that's the most perverse type of behavior you can have. So you would think that guy would be at the bottom of the list. In other words, a Nazi, put a Nazi at the bottom of the list, right? How much more perverse can you get than killing another human being?
Right. But this is not killing a human being. Now, we noticed over here also, it's very interesting. Again, we're just trying to build a theory as to why. But when it came to the killing of men, we first had the Maka'ish, then we had the Machaviv, and then we had the Ganavish. Right? Very interesting. He was in the third position. Before the Makal. Now I can understand the Makalel and the person who doesn't kill is a lesser level. That's why I put him here. The Makalel is only words, not action. But still the Ganav was in the third position. You know what I mean? There's the human, normal, healthy human being who happens to murder someone. Not very nice at all. And then there's the person who relates to his parents and hits them. We can understand, okay, it's a special relationship. And then the Ganav is put in the last position. Okay? As the aberrant behavior, I would say. But okay, anyway, just throwing something out. I'm not giving any definitive answers here, but by doing this, you see, you're forcing yourself to explain what's going on. That's what I call being an observant Jew. If you don't keep track, you see, people used to do this in their head. And unfortunately, because of Vitkat and Sidaris, things are harder for us to keep track. But that's what the people who are really in the business are watching. They call Sofrim every word they're watching, every change of relationship they're watching. And it all has to be, since it's given by Kodesh Baruch Hu, there has to be a logical progression here. Okay? So that was a theory. Anyway, but also, now we go to Shein and Regel. How come Shein and Regel, which means, and again, this is, it doesn't say clearly Shein and Regel, but I'm putting in what the Gemara tells us that Shilach and Bia mean, okay? So let's accept that for now, that it's Shein and Regel. Why, when an animal eats something or walks on it, why is that at the next level of in our aggressors?
Say that again. Why is it the sound was?
Why is it the next level down?
Yeah. Yeah.
After we spoke about the shore goring, we talked about the shore goring and killing. Fine. We talked about the boar and the shore killing another shore, and then we talked about the ganef. Now we're talking about the shore eating or trampling on someone else's property. And notice the property does change, by the way. The victim here is a soda or a Karen, because he's eating or trampling a soda or a Karen, right? You trample over an animal. So why is this in the next level of descending responsibility?
Because the nature of the damage is less, or?
Why is it less?
I mean, it's quantitative, so it depends. Depends how much the damage he's really doing.
Well, yeah, what happens if it's a very expensive vineyard? I mean, it could be that more the whole vineyard that he tramples or eats is worth more than the socks, you know. So I wouldn't say it's in the value of the victim here.
That's a good question, especially if we see that if the Meshaleach is an Ish, so really as you have it here, the poil is really a human being. It doesn't make sense. It's coming even after.
Okay, now that's that. It doesn't. It says that the pasuk says Ish ki yavara soda or Karen. It does really say Ish. And we have to explain that. So I'm going to explain it again in light of my knowledge there of later on. So it's, but you can see there is a svar here. When an animal eats or walks, it's totally instinctive, as opposed to when he gores. The gores, they're going to learn, means that he has intent to do damage. But here, he's really only hungry. The damage is a consequence of his hunger or his attention, because he doesn't care where he walks. That's what's called a behema. So these are acts which are called unconscious acts. When he gores, that's a conscious act. And because of that, your responsibility to watch is much higher, because your animal has the ability to consciously hurt another animal. Okay? Also with the boar, we said you are making the boar, okay? But here, and of course the Ghana, but here the Shane and the Regal is not something that the animal does. It's not doing it for a damaging purpose. He's just doing it because he likes to eat. So you might think here this is a lower level of responsibility in a certain way because it's not what we call a clear and present danger, like those sharp horns on his head. You might think that you don't have to, you're not responsible. Comes along the Torah that says even in this lower level of instinctual behavior, you are responsible. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the Shane and the Regal, because there's no consciousness there. It just happens because he likes to walk. I often tell kids when they learn, I tell parents often, I tell the kids at the bar mitzvah that what's the difference between before the bar mitzvah and after the bar mitzvah? Before the bar mitzvah, you're in the bechina of behema. You have a yetzer hara. So if you want to get from point A to point B, like a behema, you're Regal, you walk from point A to point B. When you become a bar mitzvah, then you get a consciousness of other people's rights. And then when you walk from A to B, you have to make sure that you don't damage another one. Or if you're hungry, you just don't take someone else's food. A behema doesn't know the difference between the food from his master or the food from the neighbor next door. But the Ben Adam, when he's bar mitzvah, already is supposed to know that distinction. That's a higher distinction. So we don't follow our instinctual behavior. And also with Karen, if someone hurts you when you're a kid, what does one kid do to another kid? He grabs the toy, he hits the kid, right? That's a kid. Once you're 13, you realize that you have to control yourself, and you can't use your Karen. When you're angry, even if someone does something wrong to you, you take him to Bystander. You don't hit him with your Karen. So, I mean, that's what I normally say with kids. I'm not normally I tell kids at the bar mitzvah now that they come to a different level of consciousness and ability to use their mind to see the world in a different way, and therefore it adds other responsibility. But behema, this is a lower level, and you as the master of the behema, the owner of the behema, you might thought that, wait a minute, this is karov to onus, right? Because my animal has to eat. So what am I? I'm responsible. I have to watch my animal and put a muzzle on him all the time and make sure that he's not going to eat someone else's field. The answer is yes. Since it's a danger, and you know he can't control himself, then you're responsible to control him. Anyway, but that's the next. Finally, we have in our discussion, Aish. The last thing the Torah says. It says, Ki tetzei eish u'matzakotzem v'nechal gadish or kama or soda. So again, the victim here is a little different than the soda and the karim. We have to explain why. It's called a gadish or a kama or a soda. Okay, but you still have to pay. So why is Aish put in the last position? Why is that a level less? Theories?
It has even less consciousness than the bull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? It has less consciousness. So maybe you're not responsible for it because it can't go and do things with a bechira. It just sits there where you place it. But the answer is, even so, if you light the fire and it happens to, you have to make sure that there's nibbles and bushes all around. Because if there are, you're going to be responsible for the consequences, even though there's no consciousness. Okay, so now I'm going to end with that, not end up. We have a little more in the discussion here. We go now to the next set of Pesukim. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's commonly called the Dalet Shomrim. Okay, now who they are and what they are, we're going to have to read. But again, now we can see already why is this the next level down, let's say, in responsibility here. Why is a shomer, a person who's watching something, a level lower than a person's animal or the person's fire or the person's spit that he did?
I guess by shomer we're saying this person is at one remove from the actual owner, right?
Exactly.
He's being entrusted by the owner to watch.
Right. So it's no longer his property that he's watching. Number one. right? Number two, the damage is going to be coming from the outside. There's two types. We're going to have to discuss this. There's him watching the animal that it doesn't go out to do damage, and now he also has to protect this animal from outside damage, either a thief or another animal coming in and destroying this animal. So it's not his property. He's only given the responsibility to watch it, which is the next level down. And his own animal is not doing it. It's only an animal under his protection. And also, this animal now is becoming a victim, not only a aggressor. So this is the next level down, and now we're going to talk about various levels of shmira, of watching. Okay, let's read it together.
Okay, so kiten ish el re'ehu. Does that mean? I know what the words mean, but.
Okay, translate the words first.
Somebody,
First we go from what he says.
So is it when one gives a man,
right?
Well, literally, it's when one gives a man to his friend or to his neighbor.
Ki ten ish, the ish subject
is ish
here.
The subject here.
Yes.
Yeah.
When
so
a man.
Ki ten.
Yes, I mean even though it's not written that way, but that's what it means. It's ish ki ten el re'ehu.
Okay. He either gives him money or utensils to watch over.
Right.
And it was stolen from the man's house, I guess from the proprietors, right? It's not the shomer's house.
From the shomer.
It's the house of the ish of the original.
No, it says
Whose
when a
house
man.
are you talking about?
Oh, very good. Because he gave it to the re'ehu. So whose house are we talking about?
Yeah.
You'll say, well, he only gave it to the re'ehu l'shmor, but it says he gave it.
Right.
Whose house are we in?
Right.
Whose house?
Presumably, I guess it's saying we beit ha-ish, so ish refers to the first ish, beit ha-ish.
No, but it says, it's very good, but you're Magdaik on the first ish, but it says ki yiten l're'ehu. He gave it to the re'ehu. Yeah. So it looks like it's in that. I would say I understand what you're saying, but it looks like that he gave it to the re'ehu. Where's the re'ehu? The re'ehu's in his own house.
Right.
I understand you're saying Beis Ish is the first ish, right? But then he didn't. Then what did he do? He told the other guy to come into his house to watch it.
Right.
That's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I think again, the simple pshat is he gives it to his friend to watch, and now we're talking about his friend's house. So it's gone of me Beis Ish, which ish? The second ish, I think. Although I mean that's we're not reading anybody. We're just reading the pesukim together. So what's the din here?
If the thief is found, then he'll have to pay back twice. Double.
Right.
Sorry, this is human judges here, right?
Right.
So if the thief is not found, then he is brought by the balabait to the judges. The thief is brought by the original. How does he bring him? I guess he gets a bunch of. Does he get policemen here, or puts a posse together?
Okay, we don't know who he brings, but also I think who's called the balabayas here? Is it the original person? Again, we're in the same question, or the shomer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the simple pshat is that the original owner has to bring the shomer to the judges.
He's not bringing the thief?
The thief is gone. In lo mitzah ganev.
I see. Okay. Right.
And the raya is, what does this balabayas have to do? So the balabayas, the balabayas now has to take a shvua. Again, these are all things that we have to add in, but he has to take a shvua that he didn't shalach yado b'maleches re'ehu. In other words, the shomer has to take an oath that he didn't steal the object himself, and he's just blaming it on the thief, right? Because maybe it's a whole big story. Hey, you know what? The thief came in and he stole the stuff. You know, mean he stole it himself. So he has to take an oath that he himself didn't steal it. Shelo yiten yado b'malechus rehu, by the work of his neighbor, right? Yeah.
Malachas Rehu means what? The act of stealing, in other words?
No, with the work of his neighbor's hand. Like, say his neighbor made a beautiful vase, and he says, I want you to watch it. So he has to make an oath that he didn't send his hand on the work that his neighbor made,
right?
Which is the vase, right?
Right.
Now, he has to take more of an oath. I'll call Dava Pesha. He has to say that he didn't do any. Also, not only didn't he take it himself, but he wasn't Posheya.
He wasn't.
What is Posheya? Negligent.
Guilty.
Negligent.
Negligent. So he wasn't.
First of all, he didn't steal it himself, and second of all, he wasn't negligent in his watching. What happens if he took the animal on a walk and he just left him alone and walked away from him? So he wasn't being a shomer anymore. So if he was negligent in his watching, so then he's responsible for the loss. Yeah, because after all, he took on himself to be a shomer here. Yeah. It's not a person that just say, hey, watch my thing. He said, no, I'm not watching. He said, you took on the responsibility to be a shomer here. So now, if you have to take an oath also that you did shmira, that you weren't irresponsible, just let the thing wander in the middle of the street somewhere and walked away from it. Right?
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah, yeah.
So he has to take an oath, I'll call Dava Pesha, that he wasn't negligent in his watching. First, that he didn't steal it himself. And secondly, that he wasn't negligent in his watching. Okay, now the Torah adds this whole bunch of animals, which you have to understand why. First, we're talking about receiving what? Kesef HaKelim.
Kesef HaKelim.
And that was stolen from the house. Right? Now he has to take an oath that he didn't take the Melechus Re'ehu. That's good for the Kalim, that's fine. Money is not called Melechus Re'ehu, it's called an object of his. But also he has to take an oath that he was negligent on the shore, the Chamor, the Seh, and the Simla. Right? We have a whole bunch of new victims here. Our old shore and our Chamor, now we have the Seh, and we also have the Simla. The Simla is a dress. And then it says a klal, I'll call a Veda. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we have to explain all those details. Now, of course, we're not going to do it. That's not our main aim, but the Gemara has explained. You have klal u'prat. We have these rules of how to darshan here. Because the Torah is now saying too much. You said kol aveda. Okay. Asher yoma ki hu zeh. That's another strange phrase. Anything that was lost that the owner says, I don't know, ki hu zeh, this is it. We're going to have to say, what does that mean, ki hu zeh?
Right.
It's hard to understand. Ki hu zeh, this is it. Okay. Ad Elohim. Yeah.
Who's Asher Yomer?
Who's talking?
Who's speaking? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Who's speaking? So I put it in the box of the shomer, who's the victim, but I don't know if that's correct. Because I think this is all about his but I don't know. We have to look at the Meforshim on that because it's very enigmatic here, you have to admit, and I'll admit it too.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, again, Ad Elohim Yavo Davar Shnehem. To the judges, both of them come. That means the Balabayas and the Shomer. Asher Yershun Elohim Yishalem Shnaim L'Reyahu. Which means if the judges call him a Rasha, who's the Rasha here? The Shomer.
The Shomer.
Yeah, because he didn't watch. I mean, the Balabais is not the Rasha, right? So if they judge that this guy was a Rasha, either he took it himself or he didn't watch it properly, but here, then he's going to have to Yishalem Shnayim Ehu, so it must be that he stole it. Because he was Peshay, I don't think he has to pay twice. So it must mean by a Rasha that he himself stole it. So anyway, this is a very enigmatic pasuk. There's a lot here that must be explained, right? It's like it's not as clearly as Kimaka Ish Kimaka Ish Umeis. There's a very complex issue here, and there's a lot to talk about in Bava Metzia. Exactly what this is talking about. We need a lot of parish here to explain it. Okay, but the first thing is what I wrote here is Shomer Chinam. How do I know we're talking about a Shomer Chinam? Okay, because it says Kia 10. We don't know. We know that he gave some object to the Shomer to watch. We don't know if it was paid to watch or not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I happen to have read Rashi, so Rashi says he was not paid. He's watching it for free. Okay, so let's go not quickly. Let's go to the next type of shomer, next pasuk, and let's see what his case is and what his din is. Ki 10 again. He gives it's the pula.
Even though it says Ki 10, this is a shomer schar.
Now, that's what Rashi says. We're going to have to understand. How does Rashi? No one makes anything up. There has to be a raya that it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it doesn't say he's a shomer schar here. It says Ki 10 again. He's giving to his rehu. Okay, same lashon as we had above. He also says here Ki 10 ish l'rehu. So how do we know there's a difference between and the second giving? Well, let's look at the din here. Okay, and also the objects changes here. Here's our chamor or shor or seh. The first time he was giving siv, and he was taking oaths on all these other things here, right, including the shor, the seh, and the simla. So all these shinui, the changes have to be explained. There's nothing here that's not put here consciously. The Kodesh Baruch Hu talking very consciously, but he's talking in a way that without Torah Shabbat Peh, we are a little bit lost in what is happening exactly. But let's just read what it says, okay? Ki yiten ish al re'ehu, go ahead. Oh, now again, remember, this is one of our rules that we're going to have to learn. This is prat and klal, right? It says chamor, shor, or seh, and then it says v'behema. It should have just said v'kol behema, and I don't have to say chamor, shor, or seh, right? So that's called a prat and a klal. We have to learn those rules. How you dash when Kodesh Baruch Hu says a klal and a prat, how do you handle it? Okay, but he's giving these items to Lishmor again. And now what happens? The first time what happens? What was the result? It was stolen from the house, right?
Yeah.
Now what's happened is, what happens here?
That it dies, umet.
Exactly.
Oh, actually more, it's destroyed. Dies or is destroyed.
I think nishbar means breaks a leg. Shover. It either dies or it gets injured.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, nishba. Nishba means it's taken into Chevy. What is that called? Like a woman that's a captive. Yeah, like pirates come and take it away. It's kidnapped. Kidnapped. Okay. Why is the difference between Ganav and Nishba? We have to explain. Okay. But usually there's like armies come in and they take stuff away, or you have these bandits or pirates. They're a little different than the typical Ganav. Okay. But anyway, Ein Roa. They loot, right? Now here it says Ein Roa. No one sees any perpetrator. So if it dies, no one killed it, right?
Yeah.
No one killed it. Or no one, it just like broke its leg. It ran too fast or tripped on something, right? Okay. Or nishba. Okay. But there was no, that's an interesting thing, nishba. Well, I mean, ain roa. But anyway, that's what it says. So what is the din? Shvuas Hashem.
Shvuas Hashem Tihye Ben Shnehem. That the two of them will take a shvur, will take an oath.
Between them. So really the only one that takes the shvua is the shomer. I mean, it just means between them.
Why,
he has to take an oath. Because the person whose animal it is doesn't take any shvua. Was he taking a shvua? It means between them. In other words, the Baal Habayis can force the shomer to take a shvua. Okay? Well, you'll see by the shvua itself, it can't be the Baal Habayis because he's taking a shvua for. Right?
But then why does it say Ben Shnehem?
It means Ben Shnehem means that that's the way that the reconciliation will come about. Okay, but anyway, look, we can also darshan that. Anyway, what's the shvua?
Im lo shalach yado v'melechet ra'eu v'lakach ba'alav v'lo yishalem. So if he did not, the shvua is that he did not steal his friend's artifact or item.
Right.
What was this part? I don't know which part of the shvua the lakach ba'alav is.
No, this is not part of the shvua, I don't think. If he takes a shvua, he doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to pay.
What is lakach?
That's a good question.
Lakach ba'alav mean?
Im lo shalach yido malech zreu.
So what is the lakach ba'alav? The master, in other words, the original. This ba'alav is the original guy, right?
And maybe took something from the original owner. Again, I'm guessing we have to look at Rashi. Okay, he has to take a shua that he didn't. He didn't shalach malechas re'eu v'lo lakach ba'alav. He didn't take from the original owner. That's how we translate it.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. V'lakach mi ba'alav v'lo shilem v'lo yishalem is the din.
Right.
Okay, so he doesn't have to pay. If he takes the shvua, again, these are very difficult worded pasukim. Okay, so we really need help here. But again, simply he takes an oath, and he doesn't have to pay. Okay, ve'im ganav me'imo.
Ve'im ganav iganev me'imo yishalem lebala.
Now here, right. If it was stolen from him, the shomer. Now we're talking about stealing.
If it was stolen from the shomer.
Yeah. The first case, what happened was the animal died. Let's keep it simple. Okay, or nishpa. In the first case, the animal died through natural consequences, right? You just saw him died in the guy's while he was watching it, or he broke his leg, right? In the second case, it was stolen. If he claims, the shomer, that the animal really died, so he has to take an oath that he didn't do anything, the animal died by itself, and then he doesn't have to pay, right? What happens if he claims it was stolen? Then, lo and behold, here, if he claims it was stolen, he has to pay for it.
This is after he takes the shvua? Or without a shvua? This is without a shvua.
Without a shvua. If it was stolen from him, we ask him, how did the animal disappear? The matter, he has to pay here.
Even if it was stolen from him? I mean, right. He's held responsible for somebody stealing from him?
Right.
In other words, even if he's been a responsible guard or a watch,
right?
He's been as responsible as any owner is, basically, and nevertheless, somebody managed to steal it from him. So now he actually has to pay the original owner.
Right. So we see already by the difference from from this in the first case. In the first case, he takes an oath; he doesn't have to pay anything. The only one has to pay is the Ganav if they find him. But if he takes an oath, he doesn't have to pay. The Ganav has to pay if they find him. But if he takes an oath, then he doesn't have to pay unless he stole it himself. But if a Ganav stole it, he's put. But in this case, which is also Kiyah 10, lo and behold, he's chayev when the Ganav steals it. Interesting? So we see the din is different. If the din is different, then there must be a difference in the responsibility of the shomer. Because the din is different, right?
Yeah.
So now you can understand why they're going to say this is a shomer schar.
But it's funny that the pasuk, there's no hint, at least in the first part of the psukim of the pasuk, that the case is different.
Exactly.
I mean, all you get is a difference in the mishpat, and then you have to work backwards from the mishpat and say,
exactly.
The case must be different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The only reason we know is a different case here is because the mishpat has changed. So the way that the object was given has to be different. Why did the Torah speak this way? Okay, that people, will have Torah Shabbat Peh explain why the Torah spoke this way. Who stole, when stole, who's the shomer, is he a big guy, a little guy, a woman, blah, blah, all these details. But the important thing here, at least, is to say that since the din is different, the responsibility is different, so it must have been that the E10 was different, even though it doesn't say any hint. It says both times, ki E10 ish l're'ehu. And the only thing it changes is here it says ki ten ishrei kesef o kelim, and here it says ki ten chamor or seh or shor or seh for kol behema lishmor. But they're both yin. We don't see any different in the pula in the Yiten part, which was the Maisa of the original Balabayas to the Shomer. We don't see any difference. But we do see a difference in the din. All of a sudden, in this type of Yiten, he has to pay for Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we can understand it must have been a different type in Nesina. Okay? But let's go forward. I mean, again, this won't be the object of our investigation, but you see, by doing things this way, you are forced to ask the proper questions. And then when you see the Mechilta, and then when you see the Torah Shabbat Peh, they're looking at the same text you are, the same thing that Moshe Rabbeinu got from Har Sinai, and everyone looked at. You're looking at the same thing. Nothing changed. They said to Moshe Rabbeinu, wait a minute, I don't know what's the difference between this case and the next case. Moshe Rabbeinu said, hey, well, let's look at the results. So it has to be the E10 is too different. So how come Hashem spoke this way, Moshe Rabbeinu? To explain to us, and they will tell us all sorts of wonderful reasons why it's laid out this way. But at least by looking at the words carefully, we can ask the right questions. Okay, so let's go to the third case. Here, all of a sudden, what does it say? Yes. Now we have exactly. What now was, who was the Poel?
Who is the Poel?
Yeah.
What does it mean here? Does this mean he's borrowing or?
Yes.
I see. Okay.
He asks, when a person asks from his neighbor. Right?
Right, he actually initiates the whole business.
Right, so it's Ish ki shoel me'imrehu. So it's the Ish that's the Poel, but here the Poel is called Yishal.
Yeah.
What was the Poel before?
The Poel before was the owner. Now here is.
And what was the verb? What was he doing? Yeah, exactly. What was he doing? The owner was giving. He was giving to watch, lishmor, in both cases. He was giving someone in both cases his item to be watched. Here, he's requesting an item from his neighbor. Different relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Different relationship. Now, what happens when he asks his neighbor for, and he doesn't say what he asked for here, but we have to presume, because what is the mesubav? He asks from his neighbor, V'ki yishal ish me'imre'ehu, and what happens?
Same as above, so it must be similar.
So it must be talking about an animal, right?
Yeah.
So the animal gets a broken leg or it dies, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's the din here? Oh, very interesting. Now there's a very unusual, Balav Eini Mo. The original owner now was not with the shoel, with the person who borrowed it. Very interesting din.
What do you mean?
He wasn't around.
Does that mean he was a...
He didn't bring his cow. The original owner didn't come with his cow into Shimon's field and say, Shimon, you can now use my cow or my ox to go plowing. And he hung around while he was watching. Shimon. No. In the first scenario, the Baal gave his ox, let's say, to Shimon, and he said, have a good time, and he left. The second scenario we're going to see in Bali Mo. You see the second scenario here?
Yeah,
if he has around and watching what you're doing. Okay? But here, the first scenario is he leaves. Ba'alav eini mo. Shimon is by himself. And the poor animal breaks his leg or dies. What's the din?
Right, so then he pays back in full.
He has to pay him for the loss. But if he doesn't leave the scene, that means Reuven, whose animal was around while Shimon is plowing, then, and the animal dies, so then the borrower does not have to pay. Okay? So now let's go to the last din series. Im socher hu. Who's a socher? What is a socher?
Who's the socher here? Who's the...
Sachir. Im sachir. As opposed to being a shoel, he's a sachir.
He's renting it?
Exactly.
Or he's
renting it.
He's paying for it. He's not just...
He didn't buy it, but he's renting it. He's exactly as you said.
Right.
Right? So the first time, we understand now, it was a shayla without any money. It wasn't rented. He just said, hey, can I borrow your item? Right? Yeah. But now he says, you know something? Let me, Hertz, rent the car. Let me rent your car. Let me rent your, let me rent your item. So the din is very strange din. Bo besachro. It comes with its rent. Now, this is a big machlokes in the Gemara. Is this case like the Shomer Chinam? Is he chayav on everything or not? Okay, but I'll just show you Rashi. Rashi breaks the case down this way. I wrote Rashi here, okay, just to help us out. Because again, not a main subject. It's only a way of introducing the material. I said this is the first step that has to be done in learning. Then you have to start being about that. Okay, so what they say is that what Rashi explains is, from the Gemara, that the first case is talking about the Shomer Chinam. There's three different scenarios being spoken about in this group of cases. One is called Peshia, meaning that he doesn't guard properly. Okay? So the Shomer Chinam, Shoel, a Sachar, or no say Schar, all of them, the din is going to be that he's chayav. Because the minimum that you always have to do is guard the animal from being a damager and also from being damaged, right? So once there's Peshia, everybody has to pay. It doesn't matter if you borrowed it or you rented it or you were given it to watch with money or without money. Okay? The second level is called Danava Veda. What happens if the animal was stolen or lost? Okay, so the Shomer Chinam, he takes an oath and he's putter. But the Shoel and the Socher and the Nosei Schar, they're going to be Chayav for Gneva Veda. The box is called Onsen. Onsen means force majeure. That means it's beyond human control, right? Like the animal dies. You can't hold the shomer responsible for the, if he's posheya and he puts the animal in the sun or walks him next to a cliff and the animal falls into the cliff, okay, he's posheya in his shmira. But if the animal just so happens to die, so that's called onsen. So the shomer chinam is going to be potter, even though Russians, it's the shomer chinam is going to be potter because he already is potter in the name of the Veda, so his body is going to be potter in onsen. The shoel is going to be chayev even onsen. Remember, that was the surprise. Even if it's nishba, or if it dies or it breaks its leg, the shoel is going to be chayev. And the socher and the nosei schar is going to have to take a shvua for the b'shia and then be potter. Okay, there's no remez to it, just as the words ubo b'scharo. Okay, but anyway, again, we see that there's three levels of responsibility. The first level is called pashia, negligence in watching. The second level is called a person stealing or losing it. Okay, now you'll say to yourself, wait a minute, if there was no pashia in watching, so how could it be chayav for stealing, for it being stolen? Okay, he didn't do anything bad, but still he has to pay. And the third level is onus. So the worst position here you see is the shoel. When you borrow something from someone, since you're not giving him anything, so you take full responsibility for everything. My wife once did a job. She borrowed a tripod from someone. And it was a dance, one of these crazy dancing scenes at a wedding. So someone crashed into the tripod and destroyed this tripod. So since she was borrowing it, she had to pay back. It's called onsen. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what I mean? She didn't put it out in the sun. She didn't leave it in the street. She didn't forget about it, But when you borrow something, since all the benefit is to you and you didn't pay anything to the Baal, so you have to pay even in onsen. Okay. Now, if you watch it for nothing, so you as the watcher now are getting no benefit from it, right? You're just doing the guy a favor. So that's the lightest form of responsibility. Of course, if you're negligent, you're going to have to pay, but if it's stolen or lost, since you're just doing him a favor, so you just have to take a shvua that you didn't do it yourself, and you don't have to pay. And the middle case is when you are paid to watch it or you rent it. So in both cases, the original owner is getting some money, so that's a middle case. Okay, so you'll be chayav on Danava Veda, but for onsen, you have to take a shvua. I don't know why take a shvua that. Yeah, shvua that you didn't kill it yourself, right? Maybe you killed the thing, or you take a shvua in your putter. Anyway, interesting. A whole discussion in Baba Metzia, which we're not going to get involved in. But if we look at the presentation, let's admit to the fact that the Torah Shabbat tells us the first one is Shomer Chinam, the second one is Shomer Schar, and the third one is Shoel and Socher. So what would be the reason to present the Shomerim in this way?
It's increasing levels of responsibility.
Right. It's increasing levels of responsibility. The Shomer Chinam has the least level of responsibility. The Shomer Schar has more responsibility, and the Shoel is going to be responsible for everything. Right?
Yeah.
So again, I would have said, why don't we start with the Shoel first? Why do we start with the Shomer Chinam first? I mean, the worst guy is the Shoel, right? He's just going to be responsible for everything, so he's in the worst position. So why did the Torah start with the Shomer Chinam?
Well, why didn't the show your aspect?
Excuse me? I'm sorry? Oh, you broke up a little. What happened?
Why is he in position number 3? Why not 4? If it's increasing levels of responsibility, he should be the 4th. Right? After comes the number before that.
According to this little chart here, the Shomer Chinam is in the worst position. Excuse me, he's in the best position, not the worst position, because he's the least responsible. The worst, the middle position is the Socher and the Nosei Schar, and the Shoel is in the middle. Actually, the Shoel is the worst. So the Shoel, if anything, should have been the first one. Then the Torah should have talked about the Shomer Chinam, and then let it talk about the Socher and the Nosei Schar. If you're talking about increased responsibility, like the one who has the Shoel is the most responsible because he's getting all the benefit and he's chayav even on onsen. So he should have been about first, right? And he's not. Okay. So we got to put out our thinking caps and think about that. I don't have a quick answer to that, even though I have to think. But anyway, but the question is a proper question. Why is the order the way it is? First, it's the givers, and then it's the receivers, right? We said there's 2 yitens. There's a yiten when he gives his friend something to watch without getting payment. His friend doesn't pay him. He doesn't pay his friend to watch. Then he's giving his friend to watch something with him, right? And then the friend is asking. 2 cases of the friend asking. One when the friend asks and he doesn't give the loaner anything, and the other one where he gives the loaner something because he rents it from him. So we have 2 acts of giving and 2 acts of receiving. That's how the Torah breaks it down as far as I see, right? The 2 acts of where he doesn't pay, one where he does pay, and the 2 acts of receiving, one where he doesn't pay and one where he does pay. Interesting. Okay. But that's it. Okay. Now the Torah goes on. I'm not giving an answer. I'm just bringing up the question. Okay, it won't be. Our main focus is going to be in the damagers, not in the watchers. But then the Torah goes on. It continues in Mishpatim. Oh, yeah, I made an interesting breakdown here, but okay. I break things down in terms of willful and accidental. Talking about the willful guys first and the accidental sex. But anyway, just move on here. Then the Torah talks about, there's one more I didn't get there. Where's that last one here? Oh, then the next pasuk talks about the mafateh. He entices a girl with him. So she's no longer a basula. Okay. So here it's interesting because both people are doing the act baratzon, but he's doing something called yafateh. It's not rape here. This is enticement. It's not rape. What? The seduction. Yes, it's seduction, right? Okay, it's seduction. Okay, but she's going to be worthless. But first of all, we have this whole relationship between her and the person who seduced her, right? V'kiya fateh ish besula asher lo arsa. She's not married. She's just a penuya. Okay, v'shochev imo. Then maher yemerenu lo leisha. He has to marry her. V'imayen yimayen avia, but if her father, so we're talking about a girl who's underage, okay, still in the reshus of the father. If the father doesn't want the seducer to marry her, so he has to give the father titen lo kesef yishkol meher basulos. He has to give her a kesef payment according to what basulos are worth. Okay, so that's another form of damage, but it's through the willful and at least in the enticement. Okay, but but it's a loss to the father because his daughter is no longer a basula, and it's still in the domain of the father. Okay, then we have the list.
The father receives money otherwise from Chassid?
Yeah, the father gets the kedushin money. If she was under 12 and a half, the father would get the kedushin money. So now the father's losing the kedushin money. Yeah, if she's a basula, now she's worth less because she's not a basula. Okay, now here we have a whole series of other types of damage. Now, someone who I was also giving this lecture to, or class, or whatever you call it, workshop, I call this a damage, right? The next one is a makshefa. He says, what's that damage? The lady's a nut. But it turns out that there is a world of tumah that can be manipulated. I told him that I have a friend whose parents come from Alexandria. The Gemara knows Alexandria is a place of tumah, very big. Alexandria of Mitzrayim. They had certain kabbalas of how to do to manipulate kisha. For instance, if things are lost, they would say certain lachashim, and the thing would be found. And it happened. I mean, a very valuable thing was lost, and he said this lachash, and it floated in, and it was found. Okay, so there is a level of kishuv here, and there's also in the Gemara, there's these people who will go on a boat with rabbis, and they start doing their thing, and the rabbi able to stop it. But there is a level of what?
Actually, from what I remember, the language of the Gemara is exactly together with Nezikin. This is Nechashim Hamal Shumala. Weakens with the heavenly powers, right? Unlike somebody who's is nine, right? It's not an illusion state.
Okay. Unfortunately, you're breaking up. I don't know why. It must be a lot of action tonight. So maybe if you just let me. Oops. I just tried to close everything I can, but let's try to say it again. Let's see if I can get you.
Yeah.
Wow. Either your connection or my connection is bad, but that's too bad. I hear you like through underwater. Do you hear me well, or?
I always hear a little bit underwater. It's not underwater, it just keeps breaking, actually.
Yeah, too bad. I mean, Moshe Shabbos, everybody comes on, you know. So so they all. It's like but the truth is. It's always different. Let's try it again. I'd like to hear what you just said. I couldn't hear it. It was like too watery.
Sure. Yeah. I was interested in this myself, so I looked into it. It's in Hebrew. It's Tzarech, where it says the Mashkefa, like somebody who is Ochez which would be an illusion, in other words, like a Houdini or a big thing, are guilty of that kind of illusion. But a Makrefa is guilty of language that in Gemara was that they weaken the angelic forces above, and so in a sense, it's a case of Ezekiel. It's the damage to the natural order.
Right. Okay. So there is but it's here as a lesser degree because you're dealing with spiritual forces, not a direct force. Now, how that works, as you said, is a whole intrigue. I mean, that you have to know about. Anyway, then there's the Shechem and a Behema, and the loss is going to be bilti la Hashem. If this is not the owner of the animal, okay. First of all, the shochev has the most shumas, and but it will no longer be used for a korban. So that's also a loss. Here we have a set of lavin, which are very interesting. Lo soneh, lo toneh, lo soneh, v'lo telachseno. You're not allowed to oppress the ger. Okay, and if you notice, there's no punishment here because it's a lav, shein bo ma'aseh. It's just words. I don't think you do anything else except. Also, you're going to oppress the almana. We have to get the getter here, but there's no punishment here. Okay, but there is a punishment because it says, I'll listen to them because if they tzowek alai, shemei eshmatz hakaso, v'chara api, I will get angry, v'haragti eschem b'cherev. So the punishment is b'dei shemayim. There's no punishment. I really should have put this on the other side, actually. The punishment is really haragti eschem b'chorev. So these are all punishments, but they're punishments not b'dei based, and they're punishments b'dei shemayim. Okay, and then here it's interesting. The malva, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with loaning people money. Nothing wrong with it. Money's just another commodity. But there's a special mitzvah that when you malva ami to another Jewish person, you're not supposed to take ribbis. So really, b'atzim, it's not a damage. It's just you can take ribbis from a guy can take from a guy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just another commodity. But there's a special chesed that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do with our fellow Jews and not take ribbis. So that's a level down. And then we have these other victims here. You're not supposed to curse the judges or the nasi. And why these last two halachas are here, I don't know. One, a bechor, you have to give to Hashem. And it's and you have to let it stay with the mother 7 days, and then the 8th day give it to Kodesh Baruch Hu. And then here it's you're not allowed to eat a bus treifa. And we have to answer, why is these called mishpatim b'chlal? I don't know the answer to that. I just have to research it. But okay, so that's basically our overview now of the Chumash. A very brief overview, but enough for us to see that there's a seder devarim of decreasing responsibility, but with a appropriate or response. In other words, there's the Kodesh Baruch Hu tells us, even though there's decreasing responsibility, so the punishment is not death, but there is a punishment of repaying and how much you have to pay under the different circumstances. So what I'd like to do next week is now go to stage 2, which is the Mishnah. And what I'm going to do it right, bli neder, right after which I'm going to send you the Mishnah, all the Mishnah Baba Kama. And what I tried to do in the Mishnah Baba Kama, and we'll do together to a certain extent, can't read everything, but we'll go over it, is now let's try to look at the Mishnah and see what it is, what does it do with the Chumash. Mishnah means Mishnah L'melech. It's telling us, it has the same Chumash you're reading, but now it's telling us information that you would not get from just simply reading the text. So that's going to be the next level of our involvement. Bezrat Hashem. Okay?
Great. We'll meet on Thursday. Is Thursday good?
Yeah, Thursday. I think Thursday's fine. I think we're finished with most of the holidays, except, Pesach is coming. But how much can you clean? That we have to leave to. I hope she doesn't ask me to do too much cleaning, although I do have certain jobs that I do. But whatever it is, Bezrat Hashem, Thursday we'll get together and we'll continue with the next stage. And bli neder right now, I'm going to send you the Mishnah. You can look it over. So.
Great.
Okay, be well. Have a great week. Call to. And also look when in the free time. I know you're probably very busy, but look at Rashi and see if Rashi discusses the questions that we brought up. It's a very big education.
Right?
Excuse me?
Look in the Gemara.
No. Right on the Chumash.
In Chumash? Okay.
Yeah, look at Rashi and Chumash. Okay?
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Okay.
Cool.